Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Force here with some more Elder Scrolls Online discussion. Today I wanted to talk with you guys about a major debate that's been going on in the ESO community. People have been talking about this issue that I'm very passionate about, and here in this video I wanted to share my thoughts and opinions on it with you. The issue I'm speaking of is faction-locked areas or territories in ESO. So in the world of Tamriel, the way it works as of now, as far as we've been told, if you are playing for the Aldmeri Dominion, you can go anywhere within the Aldmeri Dominion controlled zones, as well as Cyrodiil, which is the central PvP zone, but you cannot venture into the Daggerfall Covenant or Ebonheart Pact areas. Now, as far as I'm concerned, if this is in fact the case, this is a major mistake, and it's something that I hope through development they decide to change and allow us to venture into these various faction areas. I want to talk with you guys about why I think that is and what the reasons behind me feeling this way are. So let's start off with why is this an issue? Why is it an issue that if I'm playing as the Aldmeri Dominion that I can only go in the Aldmeri Dominion and Cyrodiil? Why should I have access to the Daggerfall Covenant and Ebonheart Pact areas? The reason is immersion, and the fact that if you cut off those areas from people venturing into, that is very, very immersion breaking. I'm going to go back to Vanilla WoW. People hate comparisons, but let me tell you this, when you're dealing with any upcoming game, whatever genre it is in, it will be compared to its predecessors. Of course, it will be compared to one of its largest predecessors. So when new MMOs come out, they're compared to WoW because that is the biggest thing on the market, and that's the bar. That's the bar that has been set. So let me talk about Vanilla WoW. Let me talk about my initial experience with that game. The great thing, and I think one of the major draws that Vanilla WoW had over some other MMOs at the time, is the fact that it was seamless. It was seamless. You know, I would make my character and I would go throughout those starting zones, and I could potentially venture into opposing territory. Now, you would be made aware of this fact, you know, for example, if you were to go in contested territory or enemy controlled territory, there'd be a large text right in the middle of the screen that would tell you exactly what you're doing, and as a result you would know if you're in a dangerous spot. But having that option is so crucial to having an immersive experience, being able to go someplace you're not able to go. I know this is something that I briefly touched on in a prior video, but I think it's almost game breaking losing that. So in World of Warcraft, you know, again, I made my character, I was venturing, for example, I started off with a night elf at one point. So I made a night elf hunter, coolest of the cool, and after leaving the starting area, I was eventually able to go to the main continent, and there I had the potential of walking into enemy territory, and that's really exciting. That is really fun. It's really engaging, and having those areas blocked off, it's a major immersion breaking issue, and I think it really pulls players out of the element, and it gets rid of the excitement. There's so much excitement behind going somewhere you shouldn't be, or going somewhere that's considered enemy territory. Let me talk about another MMO, one that I more recently played, Star Wars: The Old Republic. I actually really enjoyed this game. I played it for about a month and a half, and that consisted of me going through the story experience and leveling up to endgame. After spending a few weeks of endgame, I got fairly bored and then just dropped the game, but that's another issue and another discussion for another day. But one of the things, while I enjoyed the leveling experience, one of the things that really ticked me off and really pulled me out of the world was being locked out of enemy areas. While I was leveling up, there were so many times where I was like talking to my buddies and I wanted to go, let's go PvP, let's go find an enemy zone and PvP. It was near impossible to do that. There were selected PvP areas that you could go, and if there happened to be people there, then you could PvP with them there. But besides those areas that were meant for PvP engagement, either contested or PvP designated, I couldn't just walk into an enemy area, an enemy zone, an enemy territory, and engage with someone. Now, I'm not asking to be able to grief people in their leveling locations. That is not what I'm asking for at all. And in fact, I prefer not to have that happen. But I want to be able to adventure there, and I want to be able to take my character and walk through those enemy areas. And if a comparable level character sees me and they decide they want to fight me, I want them to have the option to engage me and unflag me for PvP and allow me to fight them. So I'm not talking about walking into enemy factions and ganking low-level characters. I of course think they should be protected against that. That's not acceptable. It really ruins the fun for anyone who's leveling. But if I go into enemy territory and there there is a high-level character who sees me and says, I don't like you here, I'm going to attack you. Once I'm attacked, he should be flagged for me, I'll be flagged for him, and we can fight. They get the jump, fair is fair, you know, I mean, he gets an advantage as is. But just being able to walk through those areas and see those different areas, and I understand, I know a big part of the reason that they're trying to do this, a big part of the reason, there's probably a couple of them, but one of the big reasons is likely that they want us to make multiple characters on each one of the alliances or factions. Again, the Daggerfall Covenant, Ebonheart Pact, and Aldmere Dominion, these are basically the factions. They're called alliances here in this game. They want us to make different characters and see that content. There's a difference. There's a difference between going through the questing system and going through the story and just physically seeing those areas. Again, we'll go back to Vanilla WoW. This is because I think this is something they really did right during the launch of the game, and this is, I think, one of the reasons the game became so huge, because with the exception of the 2 continents that you had to take a boat across to, you could walk north to south of that continent and you could go through enemy territory, contested territory, and your own territory. Wherever you felt like walking, you could go. There were mountains in the way at certain areas, but you get the picture. I could physically move from north to south and basically go in whichever section that I wanted to, even if it wasn't controlled by my faction. And that is such a huge thing. I'm going to just say it multiple times, and while we continue to cover the development of this game, I will continuously bring it up as to how important that I think that is. And even though I actually started off as Alliance when I played WoW, and I was going through those different areas, even though I physically saw those areas, I didn't know much about the story. I knew what the landscape looked like, but I didn't know about the story. I didn't know about the lore. I didn't know about any of that. And that is only an experience that I got by making a character of the other faction. I don't think that they have to worry if it comes to them wanting people to keep playing the game and see these other areas. I don't think they have to worry about people not making new characters just because they can physically view that stuff. I think what they do have to worry about is breaking that immersion and literally having a hard wall that people cannot walk through and just be frustrated by, because I will be frustrated by that, and I know a lot of players will be frustrated by that. And it's not even just the PvPers. I think the people who love to RP, you know, they love role playing, I think they want the idea of, I'm going to push into the enemy territory. And even though we know we're never going to take over any of their cities, the only city control and back and forth that's ever going to happen is within Cyrodiil. Even though I mentally know I can never take over this zone, I can never take over this area, being able to go into a town on the fringe of Cyrodiil and, you know, on the fringe of Cyrodiil and the enemy faction zones, go into a town, kill some guards, and just take post there. Hours and hours and hours, countless hours of fun and potential that could be happen just from that experience. And that's a really big thing. And again, that goes for RPers and PvPers alike. I think both people would like the idea of being able to enter enemy faction. The second reason why they're potentially locking this out could be for loading purposes. Maybe it is the case, it might very well be the case that they're going to have loading screens between Cyrodiil and each one of the Alliance territories, the Daggerfall Covenant, Aldmere Dominion, and Ebonheart Pact. I hope they don't. I hope they can somehow make that seamless, but if they do, loading screens, okay, that makes sense. But that is also immersion breaking, and if there's any way that they can get around that, that'd be fantastic. I think the unfortunate thing is that they don't have the advantage that Blizzard had when they constructed World of Warcraft, when there were 2 large continents that were separate from each other so that they could have each of them loaded separately. They don't have that advantage because basically Tamriel is one supercontinent here in this game. It's just one large thing, so they don't have the advantage of being able to just do loading screens on boat rides between 2 huge continents. But I don't know, maybe they can do it. If they can't, that's really too bad. Loading screens definitely break immersion. I would love to be able to, if I started a character on the Daggerfall Covenant, walk from west all the way to east through Ebonheart Pact's area. And even though I'm likely to get killed in their area, I still have that option, and I'm still immersed in the world and really enjoying the experience. Now, I'm sure that there are many of you out there who may disagree with my opinion when it comes to being able to go into enemy areas. Once again, please hear me. I'm not looking to have, you know, super hardcore elite sauce people ganking lower level characters while they're trying to level. Not at all. Some sort of a flagging system where people are safe in their own territory and people who enter are always in danger of being attacked. But if they get attacked by the opposing faction while in their area, then they have the opportunity to fight back. I think that's probably one of the best ways you can do it. Trying to eliminate loading screens, having the option of being able to walk through what feels like a seamless world is absolutely huge. And again, I think it's one of the biggest things that Blizzard did right when they launched World of Warcraft. I think it's one of the things that really drew me and lots of other people into the game, and I really hope they can do that with ESO. I don't know if it's technically capable. I don't know if they even want to do it from a standpoint of, you know, trying to have people play through other areas and experience that content. Once again, I don't think that that's going to break people away from that. I think that even if they physically see the other areas, they get that excitement of being in enemy territory, they may still want to level up a character for the storyline. In fact, they probably will. I will, and I know other people will as well. All right, guys, I'd like to know what you guys think about this matter. Please let me know in the comment section below. Once again, as far as I'm concerned, this is a major issue, and it is definitely something that I hope they address throughout development, or at least, even if it is a loading screen issue, give us the option of walking through a loading screen into enemy faction territory. I have a great chance of being beasted and just overwhelmed by people. That is fine. I want the option to sneak through it. I want the option to see it. Countless hours of fun. It really will be, and I really hope that they can do that here in this game. Thanks again, guys, for watching. Stay tuned in the future for more Elder Scrolls Online coverage and discussion as we follow the game through its development and keeping our fingers crossed for what may potentially be a great title. Thanks again. If you like the content, please subscribe, and as always, keep watching and keep owning.